they have no idea what is true about you. It's all inside of you. You've never shared any of it. You're just a stranger across the room.
Yeah.
They show up and a couple things might have happened. They either might have seen you across the room, call that your brand image. They might have saw something like, oh, who's that guy? Right?
Yeah.
They don't know anything about you. They just kind of have what they perceived. Now you can help with that. You can dress nicer. You can put up a logo on a pretty website and whatever. You have an image, but even better, you can actually share what you believe.
Brandon Birkmeyer from brandonbrands.com and host of the Brands on Brands on Brands podcast. Welcome to the show.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for having me. What's up?
For those who obviously don't know, Brandon is actually a good friend of mine. I've met Brandon a couple of times in person, so this is an honor to finally have him on the show. He's got a top 100 marketing podcast, so huge congrats for that, Brandon. I know you work hard, and you are about to launch season 3 next Wednesday. So maybe quickly tell us a little bit about that, your background, what got you into marketing, how long you've been in the game, and what has you excited right now?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'm excited to be here, excited to be talking about marketing and branding for people who are looking to build businesses, and especially in this space, which is exciting. I've been in this marketing game for over 18 years now. I mean, straight out of college, I started working at ad agencies, and in this field called marketing, marketing strategy, media planning. Basically, how do you figure out how to put your message in front of customers so that they'll buy your products? And I've been doing that for top 100 companies since day one. So a lot of that is where I come from. I'm like very strategic. My mind is thinking about how do I put things into categories and then figure out what, and unlock the complications of them. So that's always been interesting to me. And I literally never left marketing. I did this exact same job for 18 years. And then 2 years ago, decided to become independent and work with businesses one-on-one. So that's what I'm doing now. That's how brandonbrands.com came to be. It's just me helping entrepreneurs one-on-one build their brands. And in the same time, I had to build my own. So the things I'm doing for myself, creating content, running ads, building a message that resonates with people that want to work with me has been something I've been doing for myself as well. So, I love this game. I love being out there working with people and helping them. And that's been my passion ever since.
Yeah, and you've worked with some great companies, some big companies we all know and love. So what triggered you to finally just maybe start your own thing? Was it something where you saw where the industry was going, was more online, and you had to start creating, and we'll get into this, content for your own self and your own personal brand, or was it something else?
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not what I would call a risk taker. The people are out there. They look like most entrepreneurs. You'd classify them as people that just run face first into risk.
Yeah.
That's not me. I've played it safe most of my life. I was pretty good in school, and then followed the path and stayed in the same career. Didn't make a lot of pivots, and that's just because like one of my top values for me personally is security. It is knowing what's coming. So being in this world of entrepreneurship has been very scary. So no, it wasn't an easy choice to jump from a very stable, well-paying job in marketing to, the world of entrepreneurship, which is totally unknown. So what really happened was I started to see that my mentors, the people that were 5 and 10 years ahead of me, they were starting to become freelancers. And I use air quotes when I say that because they were actually just people that were starting to have trouble finding jobs. Because as you get to a certain level in this type of career, there's fewer and fewer spots at the very, very top. So what I started to see is all these mentors having trouble finding consistent work. And I started to think about, what is it that's causing this? And how do I stop this from happening to me? So it's a bit like, as someone who avoided fear and avoided the things that would cause fear, the fear that I'd say was behind me started becoming less powerful than the fear that was in front of me. And really what I saw was myself becoming a commodity in 5 to 10 years as someone that would have trouble finding a job. So I said, how do I make myself unique and irreplaceable? And how do I build my brand in a way that makes it so that I am something that people chase as opposed to something that can be replaced? And that's what started me on my journey.
Yeah, and in the ever changing world of marketing, there's always new trends and always different things changing. You have to be on top of your game, and I guess we'll get right into your season 3 starting next week. It's based, looks like a lot of it is the power of content creation. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, it's all really all about content marketing strategy. And here's, if I give you a little bit of background, if you let me,
Yeah.
I think what started was I figured when I went out on my own, I, didn't know what I was doing. I was like, I'll do some consulting work and just see where I can be helpful. And really, to make myself, to get customers and make myself known for something, I had to start creating content. And so in the process of creating content, I realized like I didn't know what I wanted to talk about. I was kind of all over the place. And I needed to go through that. And it's like going to the gym for the first time. Like you have to start going consistently to figure yourself out. So in the process of using my voice in multiple ways, podcasting, writing articles, creating videos, in the process of using my voice, I found my voice. I found the things that I really love talking about. I found the things I was passionate about. And in using my voice and finding my voice, I started to hone my message, the things I wanted to be known for. And that was something that was very powerful for me. And then I said, how do I help other people do this as well? And the problem is a lot of people will start creating, they'll start a show like yours, and they'll say, let me create something that, helps me deliver my message to potential customers, but then they'll quit. And, the average podcast, for example, goes about 8 episodes before they quit because it's a lot of work and not always doesn't always deliver the return they're looking for. And so season 3, to get back to the question, why I'm focused on content marketing strategy is because I realized that it's not just enough to create something. You have to have a full system in place to keep it going so that people not only find it, but that they share it with other people and that it gets the audience you want behind it, so that you're not just creating something that only 30, 40, 50 people listen to, so that you create something that reaches enough new people that people are entering your world and they're starting to get to know you and trust you, and then eventually might want to work with you. So I'm starting this idea of how do I explain content marketing strategy in a way that anyone out there who's starting could understand it and apply it, and not just teach them the idea of it, but teach them what are the steps you would actually have to take that makes sense, because most of us don't have time, we don't have money. So how do I teach them a way to do that that actually works for the real average business owner, entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's powerful. There's a lot to unpack there, I think. And let's maybe get for the average subscription box owner who's starting and listening to this right now, or maybe he's a seasoned veteran that he's doing his thing, but he's looking to new ways, new ways for content creation. It's 2020. What are some of the methods out there that you suggest to work on?
Yeah. So in terms of creating content, I mean, you have 3 choices, right? You can be someone who likes to write and you can create a blog of some sort and you can answer questions on your website that are asked all the time. You can create a podcast, which is, get a microphone like we're doing and talk about the things that you want to talk about, or you can do it with video. You can grab a camera, set up the lighting, and you can do all of that. And then there's, imagery as well. Some people have businesses at work for just very strong, powerful images, and they, live on Instagram and that's their thing. But for me, it's like you figuring out, in terms of you using your voice, where are you comfortable? And then where can you create in a prolific way? Where can you do a lot of content? So I love podcasting. It's my favorite number one spot to create, because for me, the most natural thing to do as a human, and it always has been, is have a conversation. So me, instead of like coming up with concepts and high level theories and whatever, I'd love to hop on the phone with you, with people who ask me questions, and have conversations and answer questions using the experience I already have. I was in marketing for 18 years, so I already know a lot of the strategies and tactics, but taking all that experience and trying to create like a book out of them, or, a 90-page article or whatever the thing is a lot of work. But having a conversation and someone asking a question that triggers that memory is easy for me. So for me, I love the power of podcasts to create, use your voice, have conversations, and then you have this beautiful dialogue that turns into content. And if you can channel that and you can take pieces out of that that actually answer questions that your customers have all the time, then you've got something special. So for me, there's I can get into it a little bit in a minute, but there's a model for doing this. And I think you have to be a little bit more strategic and thoughtful about how are you designing the content. Instead of just being random, how are you designing something that is meant to serve your customers? So that's where I think I like to go with it.
So some of the tools. So let's say, okay, first of all, do you think a podcast is something every entrepreneur or business owner, let's use the subscription box again industry, which is what the show is all about. Do you think if I'm a subscription box owner, everyone should have a podcast?
Yeah, I think it's funny is that I'm biased, right? So I would love it if everyone did have a podcast, but no, I don't. I don't think that they have to. I think that if they did, everyone has to have some kind of content to support their business. And for me, the fastest way to create that content for your business is a podcast. But if that's not how you work, then no, it's not for you. But for me, a podcast is what I'd call an engine. It's an engine to my content marketing. It's not that the format itself, like, podcasts are actually, out of all of them, they're the hardest to find. The average listener of a podcast is there's like 180 people on average subscribing to podcasts. So there's not a ton of discovery being generated. But I don't think about it like that. I don't think my customers are going to find me by going into iTunes and finding my podcast. What I think is that I'm going to create this amazing, amount of content that, an average conversation, if I talk for 30 minutes on a podcast, that's about 3 to 4,000 words of content generated in just me talking for 30 minutes naturally. And I can take that content, get it transcribed, and we could talk about that. I can get it
Yeah.
transcribed for very cheap or for free, and then take that content and edit it down into multiple pieces of writing, or into, very long pieces of writing. And then I can take that down even further into lots of pieces for social media and whatever else. And the only piece that's missing is potentially the video part. But if you have a camera turned on like we do in this interview right now, I can take clips from that as well that makes sense from a video aspect. So there's a lot you can do there. For me, I'm thinking it as the engine. What's the easiest place that I can create the fastest? And for me, that's podcasting.
Yeah, I love it. I'm obviously biased. I'm going to have to agree with you on that one as well. What are some of the tools people are using now to transcribe? You said for free, and if there's the free ones, let's say they're not as good as the paid ones, what's a good one that you would recommend?
Yeah, there's a lot of them out there, and I've actually been diving into this a lot. 'Cause for me, it's not just how do you find that one thing, but how do you build a system around it. So for the people that, let me just frame it for you, right? There's basically, besides you having to do it yourself, which let's avoid that at all costs, because that's like hours and hours of work that you don't need to do. There are a couple of options. You can use something that is fully machined. In other words, it is a system going in there, an app, some sort of software going in there, listening and taking your words and creating them the best that it can.
Okay.
And going machine based only, you're going to get about 80% accuracy on this stuff, maybe more, but like that's 80 or more is about where it's at. So you still have to go back in there and then edit, right? But if 80% of the work is done, that's a lot of time saved. And you can do something like that for as much as, like, call it $10 a show or $2 a show. It depends. But what I've seen is something like up there about 25 cents a minute for a lot of this stuff is like the standards. And I found cheaper than that. You just kind of got to know where to look. There are places that give it away for free. So if you go into Google, for example, and you open your doc, or not Google, if you open like a document, like a Google Doc, you can hit the microphone in there and it'll let you record and transcribe while you're talking. So there's different ways to do it for free. Same kind of system. You can put a video into YouTube and there's transcription there for free too. But you have to figure out what works the best for you. There are machine systems like that are 25 cents a minute. The ones I like that are machine, you pay them, you just submit it and get it back in like 3 minutes. Temi is a great one, TEMI.com. And and rev.com is similar, but they're like owned by the same company. So basically, if you're looking for just transcription, TEMI.com, Temi.com is a good one. And beyond that, then the next step is really the human side of it. Rev.com also has a human transcription, which suddenly you're now paying $1.25 a minute instead of 25 cents a minute. But they'll take you like 99% accuracy because
Wow.
they'll run it through the machine, and then they have humans getting there, like getting it the rest of the way. And then so for that price, you can get the rest of it done for you.
Yeah. So maybe someone listening is saying to themselves, this is all great, but I don't even have time for a podcast, and my marketing budget is already through the roof. Maybe tell me, like, what kind of money should a startup spend on marketing when they are starting out? Um, maybe as a
Yeah,
percentage. Yeah, let's just start there.
yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, I do this all the time, right? So like for me, I've worked with a lot of companies, and what I like to say is, like, what is your first marketing strategy? Maybe you've dabbled with a lot of different things. You tried a Facebook ad, you tried to run some Instagram posts, and nothing's working for you. What happens is you don't have a strategy. You haven't figured out what it is for you that should be your first step, second step, and third step, right? So for a lot of people, they don't have their priorities figured out. So you kind of have to do a little assessment to understand, like, where are you in terms of your time and your money? To your point, do you have time to work on this? Because if you don't, then you're going to have to spend some money. It's one or the other. It's not free, and it's not zero time invested. So
Yeah.
you have to start there,
Yeah.
right? Like for anyone, you have to figure out what do you have first to do. If you have time, if money is like at zero and you have nothing but time, then you've got to either learn the basics of whatever that first thing is going to be, or you have to pay someone a little bit to teach you so you can do it from now on, right? So I
Yeah.
try to think of it as projects. For me, if you can isolate what your first project should be, which is different for every company, I like tackling things in projects. So I met like a restaurant uh, owner, and we talked about their business, and it was like, okay, for you, the first thing you need to do is, get your website rebuilt to actually capture customer information.
Hmm.
And then you need to rebuild the back end of it so that you have an email marketing system that can talk to those customers. For them, that's all that they needed to do first. So find a budget for that, because that's something that would be way too hard for you to learn. So like, you might not even have a choice in some of this,
Yeah.
and for someone else, it might be, well, my website's okay. I paid for someone to have a website. That was kind of the cost of entry. Like I did that. I have kind of an email thing going. So now I'm just really curious about like using social media and ads. Basically, how do I drive new attention? And at the end of the day, like, marketing for me is very simple. It's your message and it's attention. People try to make it very complicated. It's price and product and distribution. And it is all those things, but they really just boil down to still these two questions of message and attention. And
Yeah.
product and price really are wrapped up in your message. So if those are the two elements that you need to figure out. Can you do it yourself, or do you need to pay to have someone do it? Your message is going to be, what am I saying to my customers to tell them that I am for them, number one, and that I am different and better and special in a way that they can't just get this anywhere, that they have to get it from me. And it's going to serve them in the way that solves the problem that they're looking to solve. That's your message. And you have to find a way to create that and convey that.
So, Brandon, maybe talk to us now about the attention that people, the type of content and the attention you're seeking in 2020. What attracts people to your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, attention is one of the hard parts, right? Because if you have the message right, if you had like you figured out the creative, that's tough too. You figured out like what to say, and you've tried 100 different ads or whatever. Putting it in the right place is just as difficult. Finding people to look at it and listen to it is difficult. The problem I see is a lot of people will pay, like the average business owner. I've seen people spend $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 a month for someone to just post in their Instagram. But
Oof.
if their Instagram only has 300 or 400 followers, and the average follower only sees like 3% of what you show them, you're paying for like 9 people to see your stuff. And it's ridiculous. That's not, and there are already people that know who you are. They're not new potential customers.
Yeah.
So there is this problem with how we are creating and how we are leveraging the social channels and everything else to find attention. So my point is, no one's building a plan to get their information discovered. So attention is really figuring out, after you figure out who it is that you need to get in front of, and understanding their customer journey, like where are they going to get their questions answered? Like there's a pretty simple customer journey exercise, which is like, ask, what do they do? Well, most of them, are they asking how-to questions? Where are they doing that? Well, probably on Google or in YouTube, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, are they modeling people in their industry? Like if it's subscription box people and trying to build a subscription box company, it's like, who are you modeling to be better at that? So it's like, who do they look to as the leader in this industry? Who is known as a leader? Well, maybe try to build partnerships or collaborations with those people, the people that already have respect. Or let me try to change the topic or a little bit. So if there was like, cannabis is this huge booming business in California and across the country right now. And people are like, how do I become a known cannabis brand? And it was like, well, you need someone to vouch for you.
Hmm.
You need someone who's already respected to say, yeah, these guys are the legit, like a doctor. Like how many times did you see a commercial where the doctor recommended this thing, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, it's why the power of like Dr. Phil, who got found by Oprah, and having, someone who felt like they had authority when he makes recommendations, whatever they are, people start to listen. So you have to find some kind of, leader in your industry to give you authority, or people seek out information from expert advice. So what are you doing to create content that answers people's questions? Do you have a framework to answer their question? Do you have some type of learning that you can share with them? Do you have some kind of values that you share with that customer? All that can become content that you can share with them. So that's the broader version of attention. At the end of the day, there's three ways to do it. You can pay for it. You can pay for attention to put your stuff in front of the right people. You can use the channels that you build yourself. It's a little bit slower, a little bit longer term, but it could be very powerful. Or you can earn it through what they call, PR, features, networking, events, the stuff where you are in the right place where people decide that they want to talk to you and share your story for you. So paid, owned, and earned are the kind of the three places where this attention lives.
Yeah, and just to maybe touch on that, in our world, in the subscription box industry, one of the ways people need to know is, if you don't have a massive budget in the beginning, especially, is you do have boxes of product, and to reach out to influencers in your niche that might be able to open them. So sending them a free box, they might be able to help you, they might not, but if you have a quality product you're happy about and you're proud of, reach out to these people and send your boxes to them. Most often than not, people are willing to help you. And I think if you have something that's of good quality and of good value, especially for someone who's going to be wanting to open it like an influencer, you want to make sure that your product is bang on. So
Well, let me add to that. So that's
sure.
earned, right? That'd be earned. You built a partnership. You can
Okay.
pay for that too. You can pay someone, a budget to talk about your stuff. I prefer partnerships where they just love your stuff. You send it to them and they love it. But there's all these people in the middle that like aren't the top influencers in the space, but they maybe have influence in their neighborhood or something. There's all these people in the middle that either they've never been paid to talk about anything, or they just only talk about the things that they love. So there's a lot of people to get a hold of, but it's a lot of work. So again, do you have time or money? Like, do you want to get out there and go through all the research and reach out to 1,000 people and see which one wants to help you like that? You might have time for that. Or maybe you pay someone, an intern or someone, to do that for you. That's one way to do it. Like, that is definitely an idea.
Yeah, so there's three of them: the paid, the owned, and the earned. If someone's feeling stuck and they're saying, "Hey, Brandon, I think I'm doing a lot of this stuff, yet I can't seem to get enough traffic to my site, or my subscriptions are stale." What's the, what's maybe something out of those three? Is there one of those that we can touch on that could kind of
We
like
can.
jolt them in? Yeah, okay.
Let's touch on all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But
Let's do it.
let's talk about you, man. When we were brainstorming, you're like, I'm doing this business. I was like, man, I'm here. I support you. I
Yeah.
love what Eric's doing with the subscription box business and with his company, Louis and Leia, right? So I was like, let's talk about it. And do you remember some of the things that I told you, or I don't want to put you on the spot? So I can tell you.
Yeah, please tell me.
So one of the things I mentioned was like, hey, since you're starting, like, let's look at what your goals are first, right? Like, how much do you want to sell in the first month or three
Right.
months, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a scale thing, and people are like, oh, I'll just run Facebook ads. But if you're only looking to sell X number of boxes, say it was 10 boxes, right? That wasn't your number, but like, let's say it was 10 or
Yeah.
200 or whatever.
Yeah.
You've got to match what you're doing, your effort, to your goal. So if you're expecting to sell 10 boxes, it's like, well, no, I wouldn't run paid ads. I would figure out locally in my community who I could work with. And like, maybe there's like a mom blog or a mom Facebook group. And I would network in a way that says, hey, can we share some of our stuff in your group and get this noticed? And so I would start there, start local, because local you can also control. You can actually show up physically for these people too and be like, hey, uh, your thing was late. I will hand deliver the thing that was missing to your door. Like, you can control local easily than you can national
Yeah.
or international in
Yeah.
some cases. So there was like, hey, look local first if your goals are smaller, at least to establish a precedent. And then you'll have examples and testimonials and all these other things that you can make your business better. Beyond that, I say, what can you do that is like short term? Okay, let's figure out who do you need to get in front of and how quickly can you do it? So Facebook is a great way to get in front of people, but I'm like, even that, you've got to figure out your targeting at a much smaller level. Like, it's not about reaching as many people as possible and opening the nets up wide. It's about starting with little groups of people that you can cater your message to one at a time.
Hmm.
Which is, I'm excited because I have 3 of the top minds in Facebook ads will be on the show this season towards the end of the season. So that might not be out till towards the end of the year of 2020, but the, not to keep everyone waiting, but but what you find is this stuff is complicated. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
marketing, whether it's owned, paid, or earned, all of it is hard. So and what I hear from you is, people try things and they struggle. They're not exactly working, and they can't afford to pay some big ad agency, and they can't afford to to hire a Facebook ad specialist or whatever the thing is, and you're kind of grabbing at straws, and it discourages people from even trying it. So they find it maybe one or two things that does work for them, and they just stick to that. The
Right.
problem is it's the wrong mindset for marketing. You have to actually understand that it's a long-term game. So that's why I say work in small projects, because if you take one project on at a time, then you'll probably learn how to do it right. And it will fail a few times before it starts to work. So the first time you run a Facebook ad, you have to figure out, okay, what am I going to do this time? What am I learning from this? And then what do I need to do to, like, okay, now I'm going to try to learn something about, I ran it. I kind of have a benchmark now. The second campaign I run, I'm going to try to understand targeting better. So I'm going to do a lot of research on targeting. I'll listen to podcasts. I'll Google it, whatever the thing is, to maybe make my targeting better. Or, maybe you did targeting. Maybe it's like, now I'm going to work on what is the right call to action that leads to a landing page. How to make a better landing page that converts. Or, there's a lot of stages to this. So if you try to take it all on, you'll never get it done right. You're just gonna be like, I just want to finish. You're going to half-ass the whole thing, and then it's not going to work. It's it's a long-term game of trying it and making it better and whatever else. Or you hire someone that can do it. But again, money or time is
Yes. So on
factor.
the long-term game thing then, because you're in the marketing world and you've worked with some big companies that have some major brand recognition, is that part of the ultimate long-term game is yes, you're learning along the way and you're going to ultimately create a brand that people recognize that's consistent?
Yeah, I think in the long term, I mean, branding is my game, right? I love branding. It's my favorite thing. It's why I called my shows Brands on Brands on Brands. But what I think it is for me, a brand is just your reputation. So I think people get it twisted and they think, oh, it's like I need a fancy logo and an amazing website. At the end of the day, it's your relationship with your customers and that reputation you've developed. So for me, again, if you started with 10 people or 100 people, I want them to have the most amazing experience they can have so that they give you feedback and say, this is, I loved it, but here's what could have been better. And you are making a better product over it. And as you serve those people and as you show up for them and you are there for them, they start telling your story for you. And that's the beginning of your brand and what it stands for. And the reason I love creating content so much is having a voice to back up your reputation helps. So when you like show up, I love making it very personal, right? Let's talk about an analogy for a second. You go to a party and no one knows you, right? Maybe a couple of people know you. You show up and what you bring to the table, like all the things that are inside of you, your truth, I call it your brand truth. They've been there the whole time. The reason why you're doing this to begin with, your background, your story, your experience, the quality that you want to make, whatever the thing is, all that is you. It is true about you. They have no idea what is true about you. It's all inside of you. You've never shared any of it. You're just a stranger across the room.
Yeah.
They show up and a couple things might have happened. They either might have seen you across the room. I call that your brand image. They might have saw something like, oh, who's that guy? Right?
Yeah.
They don't know anything about you. They just kind of have what they perceived. Now you can help with that. You can dress nicer. You can put up a logo and a pretty website and whatever. You have an image, but even better, you can actually share what you believe.
Mm.
If they heard you, if they overheard a conversation you were having with someone and you conveyed all the things, all your values, all the things that make you different and better and not a commodity, that make you like why they should work with you than anyone versus anyone else, the things you do that are different. If they've heard that, then when they meet you for the first time, they have a more in-depth perception that's more true to who you are. So, and then when you finally meet someone, that experience they have, they shake your hand, that thing you create that first time that they engage with you develops that brand even more. It's that reputation grows. And I'll tell you what they say is what I've learned in all these, I've interviewed these amazing leaders and entrepreneurs in marketing. And what they say is most customers could care less if like 70+% of brands disappeared tomorrow. They couldn't
Mm.
care less. But so that's scary, right? You're building this brand
Yeah.
and they actually don't care. Like, oh, just give me
Yeah.
the other thing that's kind of similar that maybe is the same price, slightly more, slightly less, whatever. That's
Yeah.
scary. But then you ask, well, what makes someone loyal? What creates a loyal customer? And I'll never forget my first interview was with this guy named Mark Schaefer, who wrote this amazing book called Marketing Rebellion. And he said what they had learned from one of the studies that he had researched and found and dug up was that if like the one thing that was measurable that you could find, like, how do you find loyalty? What's the measurable thing that causes loyalty? And the answer was a shared meaningful experience. Now, when you think about that, you think about what is a shared meaningful experience? How do you create that as a business, like naturally, authentically? It starts with how you're interacting with them, not just in the purchase process, but leading up to it, during it, and after it. And all those things come together. And how do you create this experience? You can think about brands that have done it. You can go to like, why does Apple not just ship you their phone in a brown cardboard box and just have like a convenience store setup? Like, why do they go through the trouble of making this beautiful packaging that you unbox and unwrap and it feels like something special? And then you go to the store for customer service and these big glass walled buildings with people that are like ready to help you and answer your questions about the technology because they're creating an experience. They want you to come back and say, I'm part of this ecosystem. And a
Mm.
lot of companies have done that in a pretty smart way that have succeeded, but that's what it comes down to. How do you create this shared meaningful experience with your customers? Maybe it's a live event. Maybe it's going the extra mile with customer service. Whatever it is, the little note you put in your packages, like, hey, so glad you supported us. I'm so excited for you to be on this journey as a parent. Whatever that thing is, those things that don't scale create meaning.
That's so powerful. Wow. And I loved what you said there. Share what you believe. And that ties right into the last thing you talked about, which is a shared meaningful experience. Because I think, going back to that analogy, which I love with the party, when you're sharing what you believe, you're going to attract that avatar towards you, correct? So I
Right.
think I absolutely love that. So I think that's a good place to kind of end this part, and we're going to get into the unboxing round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Brandon, what is the most frequently asked question you get asked from your clients?
Oh, is that the whole
Sorry,
question?
yeah, I'm going to say it again. I was going to say or customers, but because it came after you don't have customers. So, Brandon, what is the most frequently asked question you get asked from your clients?
How do you create content consistently? How do I do it? Because it just gets exhausting. So yeah, that one.
If you could hire anyone as your mentor or coach in any industry, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a good one. Mentor or coach in any industry. I think like I've been like listening to a ton of Gary Vee. Obviously that's kind of for a marketing dude, that's the kind of the go-to answer. Gary Vee or Tony Robbins. I mean, those guys are just like inspiring. They're touching millions of people and they seem to have the right heart behind it.
Can't go wrong with those ones. Do you have a favorite quote?
I have my own quote. I'll go with that.
Nice. Let's hear it.
Yeah, for me, what I like to say is right now, I mean, it changes every month, but right now it's success is not random. It's designed. Like I've heard the version of that, which is like success leaves clues, but I think it's more than that. I think that when people get out there and create their content, especially, or they do their marketing, they like to do a bunch of random stuff without the strategy. And I'm a big strategy guy. That was my entire job. So for me, it's success is not random. It's designed. So
And knowing you, it makes perfect sense. I love it. What is one thing you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started your company?
well, that's a good one. What do I wish I knew when I started my company that I know now? I think that at the end of the day, I think that there are systems that you need to build into your business that support it, and really focusing on what those are piece by piece has been important for me. So, and I can't do everything at once. So prioritizing those has been important for me. I know it's kind of a nerdy answer, but at the end of the day, every season I'm taking on a new challenge. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not a huge YouTube star yet because that's not a priority for me. But one day getting content on YouTube will be a priority. but not
Yeah.
today. It's not. So like, yeah, finding systems that really benefit your business that pull you out of the mix, like where you can do more of the things that you're really good at, and picking system by system to build has I wish I started doing that from day one.
Who is the most influential person you know in the subscription box or e-commerce industry?
Interesting. This is a interesting, like, that I know personally or just know of.
Let's say know of.
For me, e-commerce, like Russell Brunson's the most brilliant like dude I've ever like seen or listened to. And I don't know if he built ClickFunnels, which I'm sure every
Mhm.
e-commerce dude like understands.
Yeah.
But if you listen to his shows and his podcasts, he talks about like all his different models for, creating good stories, for building a tribe and a community, all that. So yeah, I'd say Russell Brunson's one of the like smartest e-commerce dudes I've ever met.
Yeah, and just quickly on that, I recently read a book by a guy he partnered with called Funnel Scripts. He wrote Jim Edwards. He wrote the book called Copywriting Secrets. I don't know if you've heard of the book, but it was a great book. So, if there was one type of product or subscription box you would say to stay clear of as a marketing guy, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's tough. I don't know if I have one that I would say stay clear of specific type of subscription box. I haven't had that many bad experiences, to be honest. I like things coming to my door every week, so I don't know.
What is your favorite subscription box as either a customer or as a company you respect?
Yeah, you know what's funny? When I live in California now. I spent 3 years in New York, and when we moved there, it was like away from family and everything else. And my mother-in-law now would send us like meals. Like she'd send us like it was called Omaha Steaks, and we'd get a box that was just like nice steaks, like a stuffed potato, maybe a lobster tail, some dessert, a side, something crazy, right? And this is stuff
Wow.
we were starving in New York. And so like getting really nice food delivered to your door every time, freshly packed, iced, nothing was, everything was perfect and it was better than we could buy in the stores. I was like, that was a great experience.
So Omaha Steaks is the name.
Yeah.
Anything in the mix coming up with your company that you would like to share with us if you haven't already?
Yeah, right now, like mostly what I do, how do I help people besides just having some general consultations? Like my focus is getting more people out there using their voice and finding their voice. So I'm doing a lot of coaching around how to create a podcast and how to launch a podcast. But what I'm transitioning towards is how to then, after you create something, how do you then design it be under a content marketing strategy? So how do you take something you've built, like this content you've built, Eric, today that we're creating together? How
Yeah.
do you take that as the engine and then turn it into 100 things? How do you build a system for that? What is the budget for it? How many hours do you need to spend on it? How do you build it to work for your business? Because to your point, we don't have a lot of time or a lot of money. So how does it actually work? You go through all this trouble to record with me for an hour. Like, what do you do to make that go the furthest it can? Because I don't want you to create a ton. I want you to actually create less and impact more. So for me, that's what I'm focusing the next branch of my business on. So I'll be working with a small group of people who are creating podcasts to then figure out for them, how do you create the systems like we talked about to take that one piece and turn it into an engine that creates a lot of content.
I love that. What a great quote. Lakers, Clippers, or Warriors?
Lakers all day, every day, all day, for life, even when they were bad for 8 years. Yeah. And we were going to win this year until they canceled the pandemic. So, you know,
And do you know if they're going to start again?
I don't think they're going to start this season.
I think
So,
I saw a LeBron quote where he wants it to. I guess they all do. The athletes all want to keep playing, right?
yeah,
But
they would love to finish the season, win a
yeah,
championship, even if there's no crowds in the stands. Like he's getting older, you know.
yeah, for sure. What's your favorite social media platform?
Oh, that's a good one. It's kind of funny because I don't like most of them. Uh, they're tools, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So I do spend a lot of time on TikTok, man. Like there's something there that is just kind of special, and I try not to get trapped in watching hours of it. But I know it's like where things are going in terms of like little video clips, and how does it evolve to fit just like Instagram did. When Instagram started, it was just models and food. So how does it evolve to fit like a business person's content. So I'm looking at that strongly. I've been interviewing people from TikTok to get to know their strategies and what's been working for non-dancers and whatever else. I love TikTok.
Yeah, cool. What's the best place for our listeners to connect with you and your company?
Right now, the best thing you can do to find out anything that's going on with my company is go to brandonbrands.com. You'll find everything that I do, all my channels, all my socials, my podcast. And if you don't like going to websites and you're just like, I just want to tune into another podcast, then just type in brands on brands on brands into the podcast 3 times and it'll come up.
Yeah, and all this stuff is obviously going to be in the show notes and in the social media when it comes out. I just want to maybe add to that when it comes to your podcast. It is definitely one of my top 5. I had like my top 3. Just missed the cut, Brandon. I'm just not gonna lie. But I've always told you you're one of my top 5. I love listening to your stuff. I learn every time on every episode. So even on you guys go back and listen to, you got hundreds. Your episode 120. You're in the 120 somewhere. So you got over 100 episodes to catch up on. Lots of great stuff, great guests that have been on Brandon's show. So definitely go check that out. We'll have everything in the show notes. So with that, before you leave us, I do have one last question. Would you like to leave us with one final parting piece of advice?
One final parting piece of advice. Yeah, man, I would say that if you can just figure out, especially if you're starting your business, how to impact one person at a time and always have that mentality, you're going to have a better business because you can't scale without repeatable results. And you build repeatable results by focusing on one person at a time and saying, how do I do this better every time? So yeah, impact is measured one person at a time is the best way I would say it.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, Brandon. And we really appreciate having you on the show. So with that, we will catch you later on.